Hello, beautiful people. So today's video is going to be for a relatively new client. We are working together on her obsessive thoughts. She's having intrusive, recurring thoughts. She doesn't identify with having obsessive compulsive disorder, but one of the subsets of OCD is referred to as pure O, just obsessive thoughts without compulsions. But she is also, in particular, triggered during certain behaviors. So the obsessive thoughts are happening more frequently and more intensely when she does certain things. So that would sort of mirror what a compulsion does and how it operates. So we can treat this like it's OCD. And even if we couldn't, even if it were just, problematic thoughts, what we do here together with EFT and ERP, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more, deals with all kinds of mental and emotional health issues. So all kinds of fears, all kinds of phobias, irrational fears or rational fears that are giving us a lot of anxiety, symptoms of depression, panic attacks. So pretty much anything that has to do with fear and trauma and pain and wounds and all that fun stuff, we can work on with this combination of EFT and ERP that I like to do with clients. So this video in particular is for a brand new client or relatively new client, but it's an issue that comes up so often. It's an issue that I've struggled with, and so I'm very happy to be making this video. So let me talk very briefly about the system that we're going to use. I'm going to break down the steps that we're going to go through, and I'm going to go through the tapping points, the meridian points, and we're going to get tapping. And I hope it helps you, and I'm going to leave my email address below. It's ashleen.peartree@gmail.com if anyone would like to work with me for a session, or if you have a request for a video you'd like made, I'd be happy to try to get to that if it's something that I feel I can help with. So let's get into what we're doing. This is a combination of EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, and ERP, which is exposure response prevention. EFT, also called tapping, you'll see so many different systems of tapping, and many people are licensed practitioners. I am not licensed. I consider my licensing to be that I had a vicious case of obsessive compulsive disorder, recurring depressions, anxiety, panic attacks, suicidal thoughts for over 20 years. And this system, what I do with my clients, is what cured me, is what helps me if I have any feelings of anxiety or depression or OCD sneak back up. But it's been transformative for me, to say the least. It's been life-saving. So tapping is very similar to acupuncture and acupressure. It goes along the body's meridians. So when we have a mental illness like depression or anxiety, we think of it as a mental health issue. We think of it as an emotional health issue. We don't realize that there are physical and energetic components to our illnesses. So tapping helps to restore our energetic alignment and our balance, and balance out our organs. And I'll make a video that goes into the meridians and the different organs to help with that. So I won't get into that here. But EFT really, it's focusing our energy in a different way. We're not just thinking out our problems. When we have OCD, in my experience and a lot of the things I've read, we're trying to think our way out of our obsessiveness, and like, oh, I shouldn't obsess about this, and here's why, because it's irrational or whatever. The brain and the mind and the body and the heart and the spirit aren't always rational. Our fears and our traumatic experiences and our wounds cause us to sometimes have these issues that feel very irrational, that are painful, and that can be very debilitating, and that we need energetic alignment and balancing of our whole system. It needs to be more of a holistic approach than just trying to think our way out of it. So that's EFT. ERP, exposure response prevention, is specifically, it's a therapy specifically designed for OCD, but it really can be helpful when applied to any issue. Exposure response prevention, we're exposing ourselves to the triggering thought, to the thought that's causing us pain, to the issue that's bothering us, to the fears that we're experiencing, and then we don't do whatever compulsion or coping mechanism we normally do. So if our coping mechanism, if we're afraid of leaving the house and then we finally leave the house, and our compulsion or our coping mechanism, even if we don't think we have OCD, if our compulsion or what we're doing, the behavior that we're doing around this fear is to check the lock 13 times before we get in the car. What we're going to do with ERP is we're going to trigger the thoughts. We're going to initiate and welcome and even embrace the thoughts. We're going to say, I feel so afraid of leaving the house. It hurts that I'm so afraid to leave the house. I'm afraid something bad is going to happen to me. I'm afraid something bad is going to happen in the world. I'm afraid my family members are going to get hurt. If I leave the house right now, some people's OCD, as we know, gets really debilitating. People don't leave the house if they're afraid of leaving the house. They don't leave the house. If you're consumed with these very triggering fears and these phobias, it consumes you. You might have nightmares about it. You might have panic attacks about it. You might have depression and suicidal thoughts related to it. It can be very, very painful. People sort of think of phobias and complexes and neuroses and things like OCD, which is an anxiety disorder, as sort of frivolous, like, oh, she has to align her books a certain way. No, it's not just that. It could be that, but it can be painful. It can take up a lot of time. It can be, like I said, mentally and emotionally and spiritually and psychically debilitating and paralyzing. So this is deep stuff. So this isn't easy. ERP is not easy. And it can help to work with somebody like a therapist or a coach or a counselor or a spiritual guide, because we're digging through some very heavy layers. And some people, when they start tapping, have very strong reactions. I had a friend almost throw up, and she's after that said, I'm never tapping again, and I haven't gotten her to tap again, and that's fine. Other people don't have physical reactions, but just be mindful that we're digging through some very deep stuff, fears and traumas, some heavy shit. So with that being said, did I finish explaining about the ERP? With ERP, you would initiate the thoughts, right? I'm so afraid of leaving the house, right? I'm so afraid. And then you would really, really do your best to get in the car without locking the door 13 times. So you would prevent the response. Exposure response prevention. We're exposing ourselves to the thoughts, and then we're preventing ourselves from doing what we normally do in response. We're preventing the response. In this case, it's the compulsion of locking the door 13 times. So for this client, she wrote to me about intrusive thoughts that in a few different areas, but the video today that we're going to focus on is her intrusive thoughts about other women being prettier than she is. She has these obsessive, recurring, intrusive thoughts that other women are prettier than she is, better than she is. And earlier I mentioned that it sort of acts like a compulsion in that she's most triggered by social media and YouTube. So when she's on YouTube and social media, she's feeling anxious and worried, and she's having these obsessive thoughts about, is this woman prettier than I am? So let's go through the points, the tapping points. Let's go through the symptoms and then the fears of the underlying fears of what these symptoms are bringing up for us. And then we'll let go of all of that stuff, and then we'll do some affirmations. So first we'll do the symptoms. Intrusive thoughts, recurring thoughts, obsessive thoughts, and it hurts. So anxiety, feelings of sadness, depression even. The underlying fears are fear of inadequacy, not being good enough. Fear of inferiority, not being as good as other people. Fear of being threatened by other women. Fear of maybe people judging her. Fear of maybe people rejecting her. And And so let's look at where these underlying fears might have come from. In my own experience, I think that my family, I'll get vulnerable here for a second, and I welcome you guys to do the same thing with yourselves. Where did these fears come from? Why do I feel this way when I see another woman that's beautiful? Because as we heal ourselves, we learn that other women being beautiful is not a threat to us. It's a reflection of us. If you see a beautiful woman, that is, her beauty is a reflection of your beauty, and you guys are reflecting each other, and that's a beautiful thing. And as I healed myself more, when I see a beautiful woman, it makes me smile. And I'm like, wow, she's so beautiful. And if I'm in a situation to talk to her, like she's in a store, you know, and we're near each other, I'll say, your dress is so beautiful, your eyes are so beautiful. And whereas before I might have been like, is my boyfriend gonna like her? Like, is she prettier than me or whatever, you know? And I know we can all relate to that, or many of us can relate to that. This is not just a women's issue. This is a men's issue too. I have known some extremely jealous, envious men also. It's a human thing. Jealousy and envy come from fear, right? They come from fear that we're not good enough, fear that other people are a threat to us. For me, I believe that my fears of being threatened by other women and being insecure, so we're dealing with fears of inadequacy, fears of inferiority, fears of being threatened by other people, and our insecurities. For me, I believe they came from my parents splitting up. I was 3 years old, and I think that sort of instilled in me a fear that I wasn't good enough. You know, people say after divorce, children blame themselves. And that's absolutely true for some people. I didn't blame myself. I knew it wasn't my fault. I was 3. What did I do? I didn't do nothing. So I knew, you know, my fear was that I'm not good enough. And my dad left because I'm not good enough. And it wasn't a conscious thing. It was very subconscious. But the subconscious mind governs the vast majority of everything we think, feel, and do. So we got to get into what are those subconscious fears. And I think seeing my father move on and date and then be with, you know, other people besides my mom made me feel like, well, I'm an extension of my mom. So it's maybe subconsciously, we aren't good enough. This family isn't good enough. And it goes deep. It goes deep. And I think a lot of people can relate. I met a guy who, you know, we're very, very different, but we had very similar experiences. His mom remarried, and his stepdad sort of entering the picture. He had vicious obsessive thoughts about insecurity, comparing himself to other men and feeling very threatened and insecure, inadequate, inferior, all that stuff. So those are the fears. We want to tap on letting go of all of that stuff. We want to tap on letting go of the symptoms. We want to tap on letting go of the fears. And we're going to expose ourselves to those fears and to those triggering thoughts. We're going to get very, you know, clear and we're going to face them head on. And then we're not going to go on social media and YouTube and see if that girl that we thought was prettier than us or better than us, if she actually is. And we're not going to look and see do we have proof of, is she prettier than me? We're not going to even go there. We're going to leave social media and YouTube out of this. Doesn't mean you can't go on ever. Detoxes are a good idea. It helps a lot. But for this practice, for while we're doing this, we're going to try as much as possible to just leave social media and YouTube completely out of our work. Then we are going to do some affirmations to try to reprogram our subconscious mind to believe new truths about the fact that we are good enough and nobody's better or worse than anybody else. We want to get out of the mindset of competing. We want to get out of that mentality of I have to compete with another woman or another man. I'm good enough as I am. I'm not better or worse than anybody else. There is no such thing as superior or inferior. I don't believe, because I might be better, quote unquote, better at one thing. You're better at another thing. So who wins? Who cares? Flowers don't, there's a quote. I don't know who it is. Let's look it up. Flowers don't look at you and be like, your yellow is much brighter than mine. Your purple is much more purple than mine. you're better than me. Or maybe they do. We don't know what they think. Maybe flowers have jealousy. But we want to get out of that competitive mentality of even feeling threatened. We want to see ourselves as being unique and special, and really love ourselves unconditionally and accept ourselves unconditionally, so that we don't even have to think about competing with other people, because hey, she's beautiful, I'm over here, I'm beautiful. I'm not going to focus externally on this other person. I'm going to focus on myself, and I'm going to send love to other people. And if I do feel threatened by them, I'm going to look at why. Why do I feel threatened by this person? Why do I feel inferior to her? Because I'm not inferior to her. I need to look at myself. Where are these fears coming from? And how can I heal those fears? And how can I really get to a place of unconditional self-love? And that's part of what the affirmations work is rebuilding our self-love and reclaiming our self-worth. So let's get right into it. Let's do the points. Let's go through the points. There are different systems of tapping. I do sort of a combination. So I'll show you the points that I use. There's a lot of overlap with points that other people use. So you'll see other systems using these points or fewer points or more points, and you can do what works for you. These are the ones that I do. So this is the third eye. And again, that video that I do about the meridians, I'll say what each point means. This is the side eye. We're going to get this little bone here too. We're going to go under the eye. It's so fun. It makes you feel so good. Under the nose. Under the chin. On the chin. Top of the head. Collarbone. Doesn't matter which side. Let's switch. This is sometimes called the necklace point or the sore spot. It's like a couple inches below the collarbone. The thymus right in the middle. We're going to the top of the rib. We're going under the arm. Let me back up. Going under the arm. Karate chop point. Side. In between the pinky and the ring finger. In between the knuckles and the wrist. That fleshy part right in there. Each of the fingers on the inside. So fun. You're going to feel so good. You're going to feel so good. Inside of your fingers. You're going to tap your wrist and then hold your wrist. Take a deep breath and say, I'm at peace. I'm at peace. I like to do both wrists. We can do both sides. We can do either side. Doesn't matter. You can do both sides alternating. Keep breathing. I'm at peace. I'm at peace with this situation. I'm at peace with myself. Breathe. Okay, so let's get into the symptoms and the underlying fears. It might be a little bit of a hodgepodge. We're going to do this for this particular fear about other people being better than us or prettier than us. I have these intrusive, painful, obsessive thoughts that other women are prettier than me, especially when I go on social media and YouTube. So get specific about what your symptoms are. And if you need help figuring out what to say, email me. I have these obsessive, painful thoughts that other people are better than me. It really hurts. It really hurts. It gives me a lot of anxiety. It makes me very sad. I don't want to be jealous. I don't want to be envious. It hurts. Doesn't feel good. I have these underlying fears of inadequacy, inferiority, being threatened by other people. I have this deep, deep, deep insecurity. Deep down, I'm rejecting myself. I'm not fully loving myself. I'm not fully accepting myself. Deep down, there's something keeping me from loving myself. Maybe something that I went through is making me feel inadequate, making me feel like I'm not good enough. Something that I went through, and what was it? What was it? My parents separating when I was 3 made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Seeing my dad leave the family made me feel like other women were a threat to me. Relationships that I've been in, things that my ex said to me that were so mean, comparing me to his ex, that really fed my fear that other women are a threat to me. So that was those underlying fears, that was my stuff. What my client and I get into about where her fears came from are confidential. I'm letting go. I'm at peace with this. I'm letting go of these obsessive thoughts. They don't serve me. I'm letting go of these recurring, painful, intrusive, disturbing, bothersome, burdensome, painful thoughts. I'm letting go of all the anxiety these thoughts bring me. I'm letting go of all the sadness these thoughts bring me. I'm letting go of the depression these thoughts are making me feel. If it's making me feel suicidal, I'm letting go of those suicidal thoughts. I will do a tapping video about suicidal thoughts for sure. I'm letting go of this fear that I'm not good enough. I'm letting go of this fear that I have to compete with other women. I'm letting go of this feeling that I have to compete with other women, other people. I'm letting go of all these painful feelings around this issue. Did I do the top of my head? Order doesn't matter. You can't mess it up. Under the arm. Did I do the rib? No, I didn't. Doesn't it feel good? Karate chop. I'm letting go. I'm letting go of the attachment I have to these issues. I want to be free from this. I want to love myself. I want to accept myself. I want to see other people as beautiful. I want to not see them as a threat to me, see them as a reflection to me, a reflection of me. I'm at peace. I'm at peace with this. I love myself. So now we're doing affirmations. I love myself so much. I accept myself. I'm perfect just the way I am. There's some things I might want to work on. Personal development. It's real. It's a thing. But I'm going to love myself through the whole process. I love myself unconditionally. I accept who I am. I accept that I have these feelings, these fears. I accept that I have these feelings of jealousy and envy. I accept that I have these fears of inadequacy. I accept that I have these obsessive thoughts. It hurts, but I'm letting it go. And I love myself. I love myself through all of it. Other people being beautiful or successful or happy or having the things that I want are not a threat to me. They're a reflection of me. They're a reflection that those things are coming into my reality and that I can manifest them for myself. I'm at peace with this. Deep breath. I hope that helps.